What is up, everyone? Welcome back to my channel. We've got our 2021 NBA Power Rankings. I'm not quite sure what week it is into the NBA season, but we will see what happens. So yeah, let's get into these rankings. That's going to start out with the number 30 team, and that's going to be Orlando, the Orlando Magic. We all know this is the worst team in the league. They're 7-32, staying at the same spot. Last week, Suggs, they're trying to build the future around him, but he's kind of struggling a little bit, kind of trying to play a little bit too much hero ball. But that's fine. And a very similar team, the two trash teams in the NBA, in my opinion, is Detroit as well at 7-30 at number 29, staying in the same spot. So yeah, Detroit very similar. Cade Cunningham, I think he's playing decent, but maybe he's trying to go too much hero ball for this team. So yeah, those two teams are the worst teams in the league. I think that's pretty clear. All right, moving on to this bad tier. That's going to start out with this Houston Rockets team as well, staying at the same spot from last week. Houston at 11-28, just trying to, if you look at the standings right now. Here, sorry, let me just pull them up. Quick intermission break while I pull it up. All right, there you go. So Houston, they are the last in the West, but they are only 5 games back on the 10 seed. There's still plenty of season. Say they go on a run, there's still time for them to make the play-in term, which is insane to think about. But Houston, obviously, it's still a full rebuild. I doubt that they make it, but considering them being this close, it could happen. But anyway, that's Houston right there at 11-28. Then number 27, we got another West team here, Oklahoma City Thunder. Thunder, 13-24. They're 2 games back on the Spurs team, who is at number 10. So the Thunder very much in contention at 13-24. Drop it down a spot from last week, but the Thunder, they're the Thunder. I think they're decently coached. I think they're going to stay competitive in some games, but then they're going to get blown out in some games. As you can see, they got a bright future ahead. But they just got to keep focusing on this rebuild. They don't need to have a good season this year. Just trying to be competitive. That's really all they're trying to do. And moving on, we're going to have the number 16, which will be Indiana. I don't even know why I can't find them. There they are. Another bad tier team now. The Eastern Conference, definitely not as wide open as the Western Conference for that number 10 spot. Indiana is 5 games back on that number 10 spot. So I don't think they're going to make the postseason at 14-25. Indiana, very similar to the Thunder, in my opinion, just competitive, but I do think that they have more experience. That's why they're ahead of them. And then number 25 will be New Orleans Pelicans. Obviously, this team, we all know they've taken this rebuild in the wrong direction, and it's not good. They're going to be jumping up 2 spots from last week. They have kind of worked some things out. They're 6-4 in the last 10 games. They're making some strides to get back. They're only 2 games back in the 10 seed. Maybe they can be in contention for the end of the year. I don't think it happens at 14-25. I think this team is just not good enough. Zion Williamson, I think, is gone. His career, he's maybe just done. I don't know. He's gaining a lot of weight, it looks like. So we'll see what happens there, though. But for now, that's where the Pelicans will sit at number 25. 5. All right, and that'll do it for that tier. Now we're going to move on to the In the Hunt tier, where these are teams that I think can make the playoffs by play-in tournament by the end of the year, but I don't think will. And that's going to start out with the San Antonio Spurs, who are at the 10 seed right now. They picking things up a bit. I know they might only be jumping up one spot, but they're jumping up a whole tier completely at 5-5, 15-22. You like to see the Spurs in the playoff contention. It just shows how good of a coach Greg Popovich is, and the Spurs. I think they'll be in that race by the end of the year. Moving on to number 23, we're gonna have the Sacramento Kings. Kings, a lot of talent on this roster. It just needs to come together. I think this team is a competitive team. They have lost 2 straight, and that dropping down a spot. But I do think this team can be in the play-in tournament. Very close for me, putting them in it. But for now, the Kings will sit at number 23 with dropping down a spot. And then now we're in this play-in tournament tier for 2 teams, each from the Western Conference here. We're not done with the In the Hunt. We still have 2 Eastern Conference teams, but we are getting done with these Western Conference teams that I think are worse, but they're in the West, so makes it easier. That's going to start out with the Portland Trail Blazers. With Damian Lillard, this team still has some hope, and I do think this team with Damian Lillard will at least make the play-in tournament. I don't think you want to play Damian Lillard in the play-in tournament, say if you're the Timberwolves or someone. But this team will be jumping up a spot from last week. They're 3-7 in the last 10 games. Not good. I do see this team turning it around, though, by the end of the season and making it to the play-in tournament. Anyway, moving on to number 21, we're going to have the Minnesota Timberwolves, also in this play-in tournament tier. Minnesota 18-20. You like the Timberwolves, who are jumping up, who are just staying at the same spot. They've won 2 straight. They're playing some decent basketball at 18-20, and right now they are in a pretty darn good spot to win this division. Actually, even climb it more. They're only 1.5 games back on the Lakers, who are the 6th seed for the for out of that play-in tournament into that playoff. So you like that from the Timberwolves. There is some talent lacking, though. That's why they're at number 21. I think if they were in the Eastern Conference, I don't think they would be in the playoffs, but you never know. So Timberwolves will be at number 21. And then a team going to be dropping down 7 spots. That's going to be the Washington Wizards at 20. And this is in this play-in tournament here, this isn't anything bad to Washington. It just got a tough luck draw, I think, for them. They're 4-6 of the last 10. It's not that they're playing worse than I thought. It's just some of these other teams I like more at this point. And I had them high. Like 13, I think, is too high at that point. So, yeah, that's really why I think this team has been dropping down at number 20. They're 19-19. They're playing decent basketball. I do think this team is definitely in that conversation for the play-in tournament. But for now, they're going to be sitting at number 20. No hard feelings, Wizards. It's just there's some better teams ahead of you. And one of those teams will be the Boston Celtics at 19. Celtics also, I think, will actually miss out on the playoffs. It was close between this team and the next team. Let's just never mind. But Celtics drop it down 2 spots at 18-21. Boston right now 4-6 in the last 10 games. They've lost 2 straight, but I don't think that'll hold them back. I think this team is definitely a dangerous team. I don't think you want to play this team come playoff time. But then again, I don't even think they'll make it, but you never know what can happen. The Eastern Conference is better this season, more balanced. At any rate, moving on to number 18, staying at the same spot from last week. We have the Atlanta Hawks, and that by the way, the Celtics will do it for that in the hunt tier. We're moving on to this planned tournament tier, as we have Atlanta now has won a game. They're a game back right now on the play-in tournament, but I do think this team has so much more talent. We saw them go into the Eastern Conference Finals last season. I just cannot see this team not making the playoffs. I think they do, and I think they get it done as usual. So that's where they'll sit at number 18. And then moving on to number 17, a team that is lighting things up. Toronto Raptors right now. You like to see this from the Raptors. Have won 4 straight at 18 and 17. 7-3 in the last 10 games. I like that from Boston. I think this team is going to make the playoffs, and I think we're starting to see that good coaching come into play now. This team has the potential to make the postseason, and right now they're proving it. They're the number 7 seed right now in the East. I like this team a lot, and that's why they're going to be 18, jumping up 3 spots. All right, moving on to number 16, which will be Charlotte. The Charlotte Hornets, 20-19. Right now at that 8 spot, but this team, we've known them to be what they were all season long. They're just a solid team, with LaMelo Ball, good young talent. It's a trying to keep developing Ball. It's not about this season, but it's the future in Hornets. But you would like to see them maybe get a playoff experience for Ball. But I do think that they make the play-in tournament for the second straight year. So that's why the Hornets will set at number 16. And then number 15, we're going to have New York, the Knicks, at 18-20, jumping up 4 spots. New York right now barely smidging in a number 10 spot, but they've won 2 straight. They're 6-4, and they're only a game back on that 7 seed, which is Toronto. So you like that from New York a lot. They're starting to figure out some things there, and I think this New York team deserves some respect. So that's why I'm going to have New York at number 15. And then moving on to number 14, we have the Los Angeles Clippers also in this play-in tournament tier. At 19-20, LA Clippers, kind of what we thought they were already. Looks like they're going to lose to the Suns tonight, but yeah, the Clippers right now showing that they are a great basketball team and showing why they can win this, showing why they could be a dangerous team come playoff time. They got, maybe Kawhi comes back in the playoffs. I don't know about that though, but with Paul George, this team can be dangerous. They got some depth. We'll see what happens there in LA. Then moving on to number 13, we're going to have Denver. Dropping down 2 spots. Denver has lost 2 straight. Not a good stretch at 10-5. Back down to that play-in tournament tier. But Jokic really trying to carry this team. He's just not enough, and that's tough, though, for this team. I've liked this team all season long, but they're going to need some development, and they're going to need to get healthy for them to start to be that contender that I stated them near that beginning of that season. So, yeah, the Nuggets sitting at number 13 at 18-18. So, yeah, that'll round out the play-in tournament tier. Now we are going to move on to this playoff tier. That's going to start out with the number 12 team, the Cavaliers. Before I talk about the Cavaliers, I just want to say these next 4 teams are very close, and the Cavaliers could easily be on that list, but they are not because I just see some more talent from some of these other teams than the Cavaliers. But anyway, this team has just wowed me so far. Losing Sexton, they still are in this playoff. They have a plus 5.1 advantage, which is actually the best in the Eastern Conference. So learning a new thing every day, I guess. But Cavaliers at 21-17, you look at them, they're just well coached. They're getting developed. This rebuild working out, and now they're starting to make this playoffs. I like that. Don't let that dropping down 2 spots deceive you. There's some of these teams ahead of them that are climbing, but Cavaliers still steadily staying at what they do best, and that's just competing every week and getting some wins. All right, moving on to number 11, we're going to have the Lakers. All this drama going on that people are talking about. Lakers, they're turning things around, though. They've won 3 straight, starting to get back. It wasn't against the best teams. It was against the Kings, Timberwolves, and the Blazers. But regardless, it's still NBA basketball teams, and they're both teams, Kings, Blazers, and Timberwolves. Are all teams that are fighting for something that I think might be a playoff team by the end of the season. So yeah, the Lakers, you gotta respect them for that. But I do think that this team, at 18-18, might have some struggles. I mean, at 20-19, it is still some questions. Is Russell Westbrook, should he be the guy? I do think this team just got to roll with what they have. I mean, they got the talent. They just got to put it together. So jumping up 4 spots, having a good games, that's why they're bouncing back. All right, moving on to number 10. That'll be Dallas. The Mavericks at 20-18, jumping up 2 spots. Luka Doncic back, 1-4 straight. This team getting better and better by the weeks. You like the Mavs as a team, and I think that they're gonna, make the playoffs. It's a tight race, but Dallas, I think, with their talent, with Luka Doncic, they're a good enough team to be a playoff team. And with Luka Doncic gaining this experience in the playoffs, his team, I think, is going to be a dangerous team in the playoffs. But yeah, Dallas landing in that top 10, congratulations to them. Moving on to number 9, that'll be Philly. Philly staying at that same spot from last week at 21-16. You like the Sixers a lot for what they've been able to do. These past few games, they've won 5 straight. They're bouncing back after a tough stretch. And, don't let that fool you just staying at the same spot. There's some of these other teams ahead of them that, I just had faith in the 76ers team to turn things around. They did. And I'd like to see that from 76ers. Embiid and this team, I think, will be able to make the playoffs. And then again, can they make a run? Just maybe. All right, and then last team of this tier, we're going to have the 8 team, the Grizzlies. Some people might say, what, you got to put this team into contenders. I'm not ready to do that. I mean, this team is still a very young team at 26-14. They're still 4.5 games back of the 1 seed. 3 games back on the Jazz, who are the 3 seed. So, 5 games back actually on the Suns. But anyway, if you look at Grizzlies, they're just a young team that they've won 7 straight. They're doing so well. You love to see that they're setting this philosophy though, and now they're ahead of the Mavericks, who are the next team, by 5 games. You like to see that. Now you just got to keep holding on to this lead. I don't think this team will be up there, though, with the top 3 teams in the West. anytime soon, though. All right, moving on to the contender tier. Obviously, these are teams that I could see winning an NBA championship. That's going to start up with the Heat. Been a little bit lower on Miami all season. I haven't put them in my contender tier for a reason, but they're showing it too consistent for too long for me not to put them there. They're 7-3 in the last 10 games. 24-15, I got to respect Butler and Lowry, what they're doing there. And we saw this team make the run to the Eastern Conference, to the finals a couple years ago. So I could definitely see it again. But that's where I stand at Miami at number 7. Moving on to number 6, we're going to have Milwaukee. The Bucks, 25-15, the reigning champs, going to be dropping down a spot, but that's because they've been losing 2 straight. 25-15. Take it as you will, though. The Bucks, they're still the Bucks. They still got Giannis Antetokounmpo. This team is still the deadly powerhouse that they are, and are not in the top 5. But don't let that deceive you. I could definitely see this Bucks team winning a championship. And I think the gap between the Bucks and the Heat is pretty big. I think these next 3 teams, the gap is pretty small between these next Bucks and the next other 2 teams. Anyway, moving on to the number 5 team, that'll be Chicago, the Bulls, the number 1 team in the East right now. Not in my rankings, though. It's close, though, and I'm just going to throw up the number 3 team. You probably know it. Number 4 team, the Nets. So let's talk about the Bulls first. Bulls, what 8 games, have the longest winning streak in the NBA to this moment, which is them at 8 games in a row. You love to see it from Chicago. Is that enough for them to make a deep run? That a lot of these guys probably don't have a lot of playoff experience, but some of these guys don't have some playoff experience, but what they've proven has proven, for me to respect the Bulls, and that's what I am doing here, putting them at number 5. But I just have to pick the Nets over them. The Nets are only a game and a half back, and it's Brooklyn. This team is stacked. So who do I trust more in the playoffs? KD or Levine or someone? I'm going to pick KD. And that's why the Nets are at number 4, jumping up 2 spots. Sorry, one sec. Anyway, now we're getting into the top 3 teams. All these 3 teams, I think, are heavy favorites to win the championship if they make it, but all these teams have to go through each other. So that's going to start out with a number 3. I'm just going to throw out all these teams, honestly. Number 3, Golden State. Number 2, Utah. And number 1, Phoenix. It's a very, very tight. I wouldn't be mad. Whatever you do, I wouldn't be mad if you put the Jazz at number 1. I wouldn't be mad if you put Golden State at number 1. I wouldn't be mad if you put Suns at number 1. It doesn't matter to me. All these teams are contenders, but that number 1 seed right now is very valuable because you get to save a spot from going up against one of these teams, assuming they make it past the first round in the next round. So that's why these teams are fighting for a lot. But anyway, let's start out with the Warriors at number 3, dropping down 2 spots from the number 1 glory as they've lost 2 straight, and the margin of error is slim between these teams. That you lose 2 straight, you'll probably drop down the rankings. That's what's happening to the Warriors. But don't get me wrong, this team's still at number 2, Golden State, 29-9. You love to see it from the Warriors and Steph Curry, the MVP. I could definitely see this team going back to winning their championship after 2 years of not winning. But yeah, next team, the Utah Jazz at 28-10, jumping up a spot. Utah have won 2 straight. They're 8-2 in the last 10 games. That's the second. That's tied for the first best in the NBA at the moment. Utah just very consistently coming back, sneaking up on the Suns and the Warriors, and I think they officially declared themselves into that top 3 rankings. Warriors did beat the Jazz earlier on. That was their last win, by the way. But Utah, I still think, you can't judge a team off one game. Utah, I like them a little bit more than the Warriors. So yeah, there's Utah at number 2. And then the Suns, wrapping it up at number 1, the clear favorite, I think, not clear, but 30-8. They're the first team to get to 30 wins this season. Warriors could have done that 2 games ago, couldn't do it. So the Suns take that crown. There's still plenty of season for all these teams, but the Suns will be number 1. Anyway, guys, thank you all for watching this video today. Hope you all enjoyed my power rankings. Comment down below your rankings, and I hope your team makes the playoffs, because it's pretty much wide open unless you are the Magic or the Pistons, unless those teams go on a run, which I doubt it. But anyway, guys, thank you all for watching, and peace out.